So hello and welcome to RIBA. Thank you all for joining us this evening. It's a real highlight in our calendar as part of the London Festival of Architecture. We're excited to host this lecture in collaboration with LFA and in partnership with our sponsors, VitrA. I'm Winy Maas, President-elect, and I'm extremely happy to be with all of you here tonight. The built environment influences all our lives in profound ways. And these agents I'm going to introduce today have been working tirelessly over the years to reimagine the role of design practice. This event is part of the program that forms of exchange, the talk series created by RIBA VitrA. And for tonight, we are grateful for the support of LFA and for working together with them to bring Winy Maas to us today. Forms of Exchange examines how architecture as a practice and profession is shifting. As architects respond to challenges at a local and global scale, values are increasingly rooted in less tangible ways. The series will address the question, how does architecture manifest itself beyond structural form? Throughout 2023, RIBA and VitrA will host a series of talks, inviting a range of voices who are leading the way with new processes and practices that are redefining placemaking and architectural profession.
Yeah, I won't speak for long before we get into the conversation, but I think that's what everyone is here for. But I just wanted to say, thank you for the intro. I'm Eliza Grosvenor, I'm head of programme at the London Festival of Architecture. I think many of you might know what the festival is, but I thought I might give you a bit of a background in case it is the first time that you're hearing about it. So the London Festival of Architecture, or LFA, if you've heard that, is a month-long celebration of architecture and city making, taking place every year in June across London. So we're right in the heart of the festival at the moment. The festival's mission is very much to open up discussions around architecture, test new ideas, and promote new and emerging talent, whether that's architects, designers, or artists. This year, we've got a programme of over 400 events, all exploring our annual theme of In Common. And this theme of In Common was selected following an open call, which was felt to be the perfect theme that brought together the sort of myriad of conversations that are happening across our city, across the industry, and actually more globally as well at present. And it was whether this is around the climate emergency, inclusivity and equity, or the power of both the macro and the micro. So the theme of In Common has brought together organisers old and new to explore the challenges, explore and challenge our city in new and exciting ways. So from interpreting traditional commons to workshopping personal and shared histories of the city that we might be unfamiliar with, or through talks and walks around greening, community gardens and farming. Many of you might know that the festival is not just a team that put together that every year. We work with a multitude of different organisations and individuals to put together the festival and have a real pleasure in getting to know a variety of people, both in the industry and outside, to make that happen. And I think this year's programme really demonstrates that. We've got a programme that goes from Barnet to Bromley, Clerkenwell to Brixton. We really are sort of all over London. And as part of London, we also have a series of dialogues with partners from the world in different cities, and one of which is this event this evening, which I'm really excited about. And I think this evening is really exciting to tease out a theme of an aspect of the theme in relation to how thoughtful architecture can create community, communication and creativity, which I think you'll see quite clearly in the work later on. So without further ado, I'll pass to Winy's presentation.
So let me start with thank you for having me in this place. And I wish you also a very great time in the coming time as a president of this institution. and to bring it indeed to a level that we all can communicate out what should be done and what we have to do together on not only on London, but on the wider part of the planet. You asked me to talk about vision into practice. This is not my word, this is a quote to it. So I took that serious. And this leads to a kind of 50-50 lecture, very Dutch, to have to balance it between the theoretical components and say the built work or pieces of the built work that I would like to present and discuss with you tonight. But I give it the kind of direction. It's a road trip, a road towards what I call Biotopia, and which I would like to, which is not finished. It is something that is coming on in the nearby future, but which I would like to explore with you how to construct that. So this is the content that I'm looking at with you. These are the chapters that in this road trip that I would like to share with you in the coming 40 minutes to deal with that. I use this next as a vehicle for that. This just comes in. And tonight, this bark has been made behind the central station in Amsterdam, full of bikes that becomes in the kind of the San Marco of Amsterdam in the future. A plan that we made maybe already 20 years ago that finally come into perspective. So somehow I'm proud that this with these emails and apps coming in on this, and soon I hope to see you there. What's next is also this. When I was flying in, I tried to of course use AI as you all do, and to explore it in its intricacy. You Google the name and you put all this. So this is showing what I am, is what it is. So if I put in, say, a design for a station, an airport in Prague with all these kind of elements, then you get this out of me. I didn't expect that. So just to, it's quite self-critical. But today I will unravel maybe a little bit then that image of this Prague airport that you could imagine. So what's next? First, a little bit of an introduction that have been wonderfully introduced, but it's like still when you grow, you want to be small and you want to be young and not old only, is then you have more partners and you open, especially at this moment, a little bit more offices to work over the planet after COVID or during COVID, how to deal with that. And we are able to work with a bunch of people from everywhere. But beside that is the Y Factory is an important tool to have this combination, the 50-50 balance that I was, and this is in Delft, making this platform at that moment and thinking about the future and future cities by this triangle. So on one hand, it wants to look at model cities, just an average 1 million city, how does it look like? And if you change one parameter, how does it transform? As a vehicle, how we would like to monitor basically our researches. There are in the viewing section of the research group are, say, applications to test it and to see how it works, but they come together in software, which I show one or two of them, that is actually ultimately the stuff where we store, that's our AI, or that's under construct, as we can see, and they become more and more important, and they have a role in our practice and a role in our communication. It leads to a series of researches. It is not systematical. That I immediately admit, they go into elements that appear, quests that are coming up, but they all deal only with the future city as such. And I plead strongly that, say, in our educational system in Europe, that we have actually bachelors that are supermarkets where you get everything, and a master education where you study research, where you and do that with lunatics over the continent. Why lunatics? And I have to refer it a little bit towards say medical science, and when you are in your master's or in your zone afterwards, then you always go along people and you want to learn from them. You learn the state of the art, and from there you take it further. Architects are normally trained to be unique and while on the other hand, we have to know our references and to make that also better. So I plead for less professors and bigger cells so that they can do something and that they do something different than another one. And that makes these elements, these angles, these corners, and these perspectives on the subject a little bit better. And yes, then I want to move. Then I want to go to Glasgow, or then I want to go to Reykjavik in order to study something that I couldn't learn in Delft, is what is done. So we concentrate on the future city already for a couple of years. So what is next? Chapter 2, and is actually this operates in a belief about evolution and to see cities in that perspective. You can even freeze sometimes in UNESCO circumstances. I will come back to that. But even then, you have to evolutionize. We'll reflect on that soon a little bit more with a book that might become KM4. And it's a while ago that we brought out this exercise on capacities. How much capacities do we have on the planet and space? And how much capacities do we have in our cities? And if we question what goes beyond the capacity, then we see that we work more now with the Wine Factory and the Wine Factory Foundation. We think about that evolutionary city. It's not an excursion on capacity, but on evolution, on time comes into the picture. And then I change that word. And then I have like also a way to act. And act is, I think, the most important thing that we have to do. And that from reflection, even making reflections is an act, but that it positions itself in the making of the future. So what is next? This was the moment that, say, this person died already a while ago, and that time made this cover. And so you die, and what's next? And I think he would have been honored by that, by saying that you stage somehow yourself in next steps. And as I spoke about professorships and how, like we learn from professors in the past, and that you always reveal the next steps that can be improved, that's maybe something that you can see in this cover. So what's the next? Again, another one a couple of years ago, this book we all have read, and still it's okay, the book, to use it. Why? Because, for instance, if we are in a flux, does it then have a direction? And the answer, according to him, and he proved that, I think, in this book, is yes, direction exists, or is possible to construct, even if there are moments of crisis, even if there are amazing, say, trend breaks that are participating in our development. So what's next then? Chapter 3 is about the construct on urgencies that are accelerators of time somehow. And it's also so classical. Apocalypse is what we normally use to do something. We always are too late, one could say, to act. So in the Planet Maker program in the Wine Factory, we try to address, say, all this kind of urgency that are there. And there are huge ones that we're already sharing. There are also more hidden ones sometimes in our agendas. And I try to make a list on them because they mingle in, and sometimes they help. And how to make maybe a structure out of this composition. So how to notate that over time? How do these kind of urgencies appear, disappear by our different actions that we are doing? And certain things are going better. Let's also be frank. And where they do take place is what this program is trying to reveal at the university. That leads to, say, thousands of spheres that indicate basically where this process have been done and where that occurred, where these discrepancies are, say, visualized through this program. So we use that to stage and to measure or to monitor basically the activities that we foresee or that we would like to position. At least this urgency is for sure to agenda forming, the making of agendas is what they do. There is, and I try to use that quite a lot, this question, don't you, how to make an agenda? I mean, you have to share. You cannot do it on yourself. And urbanism is mainly about doing it collectively. You have to ask the question to you, do you? No, better. Don't you want to be responsible? Then 99% of the people says, yes, we want to be responsible. Openness, slightly less. That is already happening, depends on the country. And curiosity, most actually people want to be curious because somehow it's a kind of survival act, it's a kind of existence to work with that. If you go further, don't you want to be green or work on green? Not so many people say no. Or don't you want to produce alternative forms of energy? Most of you will say yes. Don't you want to produce oxygen? You immediately say yes. And don't you want to give space for biodiversity? Most of you will say. So the list continues with what I would like to address. Because not so many people are against humanism or sociality. There is a lot to say about accessibility. Or there is a lot to say about democracy, about sharing, say, decision-making processes. And there's a lot to say about freedom. Adaptability is a word that comes into our profession a lot, and the diversity, heterogeneity, happily they become more in us. And but then you go into the, say, in the architecture zone, don't you want to be lovely? Most of you say still yes. Don't you want to be beautiful? And there are a huge amount of definitions of beauty. Then you get also this yes. So we share quite a lot in this kind of place that in summary would like to be somehow a little bit more wonderful is what we paint. So this I could call a shopping list without order. And there are more things, I forgot a lot of what could and can be addressed. And what I think I try to do is to make the things a little bit bigger, to make that visible and do that already maybe 30 years, this technique to say, hopefully accelerate a little bit these items on this perspective. So let me give you some of them. I pick out some of the words, and I start with freedom, because freedom I think is and we speak about it geopolitically enormously, is an important tool. So I think I started the research that we did on WeGo. We between brackets, because from ego to WeGo is a thin step, I would say. If you want to explore individual potential and freedom on that, then you meet your neighbor at a certain moment and cross sometimes border, as we already monitor a lot. So this book came out a while ago. It started with 17 architects in a studio that were dealing with 17 clients, and they were constructed through the internet to imagine this hyper lazy man, what kind of house he would like to have with his bowling alley and his bed. How this immaterial character, how an immaterial house could be constructed by this, how this metal person could think about the house, etc., etc. So this is a beautiful collection, nothing against that, and chosen or developed by a relationship between an architect and a client, and with a kind of idea also to make these characters different as possible. And but if you put that, say, in a normal suburban landscapes, and I come back to that later, then it already looks beautiful. You have a field of beauty, it's much more beautiful already than Milton Keynes. And how to then but if you start to imagine that, say here on Trafalgar Square, then I would have actually a fantastic building if I could do it like that in density. Density is an interesting moment to explore the relationship between egoism and wegoism, is what I want to say. So how to do that? So we made games. So to play between the different players to find out the best composition while defending what you want, is what it tries to do. So you see that happening here. I am playing. I don't see the rest in this game. There are 4 different games to work with that, and it mutates over time. That is the X-ray of it that you cannot see and attack you. Yes, you have to know the game, and you have to work also with that language that I'm. So my mom couldn't do it, but I'm aware that could that if you can allow such a kind of, say, tools, and normally in our lives we do it already, then that could happen. Here, the different games are in it, different kind of softwares. The blind game gives the highest amount of satisfaction, is what this 75% indicates. That's quite a lot. 75% satisfaction is already quite democratic to register, basically. And still there are losers, I know. to in such a kind of game. But okay, let's keep it as a tool to do it. So in that game, you get this kind of houses. They become more nuanced in that interaction between them, and that leads to, say, this kind of puzzle of houses, which are beautiful. They have their character. And imagine that you are in this house. Wow, how to go to that one over it. And it is as if that corner, that orange corner of there is peeking into your house. It's, what's happening there? It is also an indirect way to say, I want to see that other house also, but that must be different. So it encourages, strangely, a certain kind of collectivism while keeping your ideal intact. So that's a second level, because in the negotiation act, you're already doing a kind of we act, and in the physical experience also can come together. So we try to do that, how it would work in different, say, design shows and events, like this one in Eindhoven, but also in Shenzhen and in New York, to see how these houses could look like if we simulate that with, say, in this case, 9 persons and on time constructed it and see what it could look like. But somehow we made it also. And now here, this 50-50% comes in. Here you see a couple that have 2 houses next to each other. Very normal. 2 stories, 14 meters deep, and that's how it is. But they want to have a view. So let's make the houses 7 meters deep, shallow, so that I have 4 stories, and I can look over the park. That's in step 2. So then one of them said, yeah, but I want to live more on the ground. And the other said, I want to live more in the air. So that happened. I said, okay, fair enough. But then, yeah, but not too high was the following step. And so there was an interaction going on. You see the dates in 95, how to ultimately lead to this, I think, this collaboration not only, but also juxtaposition of these 2 families. And one having a tower house on the left, and other living a little bit more up. They were a bit afraid of Utrecht, of that town. And to have this composition that then gradually was visualized in this vintage way to see what that could be. Then it was constructed and it was frozen, that discussion, and lead to this kind of cohabitation of house left, which is peeking bedroom of the neighbor into your house, perfectly isolated, don't worry. And then say here how you could go from the bottom to the top in this sequential spaces that we could make. Somehow Oosterwold, some of you might know it. It's does it this in a urbanistic way. This is Amsterdam, and this is Almere, say our Milton Keynes, and they and it in Almere is this. So all the poor people from Amsterdam went to Almere, or forced, or how do you say that democratically? And they live in this typologies of it. So now we work on an innovation, and I will not show that master plan of the whole new city, how to make actually 4 new garden cities that help to diversify that city, that help to grow also to 300,000 people, so doubling, and how to do that. So in one of the 4 new garden cities, this is on this east side, we mix agriculture with housing, and we allow for, say, an urbanism which is only exploring freedom. That means you can do what you want. You can make a normal plot. You can do this kind of Barba Papa plot. You can do a letter. We don't care, as long as you don't harm your neighbor. That's only how to do that on that moment. So there are groups that work with many people. There are individuals, and you see that they need always to fulfill certain elements. They have to do a certain piece of the greenery, and have a certain piece of the water body, and a certain piece of the agriculture to take that part of them, and then they can grow in size. So here you can imagine that certain developers are also taking place in this zone. This has to be done, as I said, without harming the neighbor. So that means that you have to make your own road, and also a road has to be next to your plot so that a neighbor in the future can come pass by. You have to solve your energy system. That's easy. currently with all the packages, and you have to solve your water system. Currently, after 10 years, in piece of discussion, I have to admit, because not everybody has good, say, filtration sewage systems the last time. So you see some tension over there. Then websites start, people start to discuss, organizing, say, groups and clusters, start to build here one group that made cheap houses, and here the agriculture that they make. Here, how you can see that others are doing, how the water system, the Helofit filters are acting, and they're everywhere. And that leads to this kind of endless landscape. I didn't design anything. So taste is not the issue in this case. It's just exploring how you could do that and how this is kind of juxtaposed all these dreams of people with the pieces of farms in between that lead to this composition. Some like this, some like that, some like this. They're next to each other. So this is, and now the first, say, this is 4,000 houses are there. And now we are going for the next phase for another 10,000 houses. So please go there, drive around, and it's like whoop, 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 whoop. And the roads go like this around you. There is no grid in the way that orientates this kind of houses. So exploring this kind of freedom, for better and for worse, I know. But and I'm so happy with my minister that he said, okay, for this 10,000 hectares, we can exclude the article number 4 in our constitution, which says that the society has to give you water, has to give you electricity. No, that in this case, we facilitate it in other way, with other kind of taxations and other kind of say technologies that are in it. It's so simple from ego to ego. You start with that. And I end up as a lawyer, basically, in my career, is what I can see at that moment. Go further in that. So maybe some of you know this though. Barba Papa, a while ago, no? And there was this French comic where Papa could change into music person or into a love letter, or he or she, because it was a bit unclear, could become, say, an animal or a table. And wow, that's cool at the moment, if you could imagine that. So we researched that together with the ETH. Like if you have, you know, this material of artificial hearts, so there's rubber and some electricity comes in and poof, 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 it becomes like 20% bigger, and now already it can be more. So if you use that also in our architecture, what can happen at that moment? So we explored a little bit, how much space do I need when I sleep? I need slightly more when I wake up. The material, like in modern times, push me out. I need some space before, because I want to open a window like this, no? My sun is coming. I want to have water that closes to any place. So I can dive at any moment, swim where I want. While swimming, and who is moving, eh? My house or myself? Water goes away, and up I have the nicest shower, better than the Zoom tours. I want to have clothes similar like you to be done. I want to cook, and the material heats itself up by intensity of the molecules that we, and it washes itself because it's the same material, and it's completely then say absorbed. So this material could then adapt all time to all this kind of elements that we wish to be. If you do that also in this WeGo figure, then you get this kind of simulations of action and interaction to illustrate a little bit the sizing that we need together. And if I try to use it with different, how can I steer that? For instance, with touching, and then the material reacts, says yes or no, or the neighbor said yes or no, is like one of the tests that we did in order to understand what was happening. If I can talk to my wall and say, well, what do I want? I mean, it says something back. It can script itself towards this kind of component. Or movement can help indeed to react on it. But these tests a little bit illustrate what could happen out of Barba Papa. So I come back later in the lecture that we have to go from Barba Papa to the Barba Mama in order to make it more, say, organic. What is next? After this exploration of freedom, I take you to openness because, and that is the book or study porosity. Some of you might know it, where we look to towers, for instance, and you see this kind of incredible stupidities, this kind of monsters where there's one door and I go into a lift up and down. I don't see anybody, and they are it's as introvert as you can imagine. And what does an architect do? Yeah, you can see it. But how nice to dedicate your life to only to this kind of say of decoration. So if is here a study by students of and you have a normal tower and you push in step by step by step. This kind of say pregnant tower that gives space, in this case, to collectivity. Or another series that you split the towers so that they have more facades to look to each other. Or the twister that makes this direction. So every student somehow had a kind of fascination on what I can contribute to openness and what kind of steps I could do from say 0 to max in that way, and to calculate at that moment the pros and the cons for in terms of money, in terms of socialness or cooling, or all the factors that openness give you. So that leads to, I think, a series of towers that every street shows how, say, from a maximum pregnancy, you could go to the say the seeding of it, and that every say series could be in that way addressed, and that leads to this. I think these beautiful streets. And imagine that Manhattan would look like that, like a scientific operation almost. Then you would have a true Fifth Boulevard, with in this case this kind of positions. Or here the village sequences that are there. Or here a tower that bent a little bit, how polite, and that where you kind of stair helps you to from one house to the other. So a rich collection of that kind of interpretation. Actually, the Markthal is part of that operation, you could say, to create some kind of openness in a way, where normally we're asked to make 2 slabs and a Markthal of 6 meters high between them. We said, let's not do it, let's flip it, let's bend the houses, and then you have a more dramatic space that encourages maybe the attraction and also an address of the people where they could live. So that is built with a view on Rotterdam, Rotterdam is not a city, it's a collection of architecture, actually a very beautiful one. I admire that urbanism in it. And then this hall in between, where, and basically you can go up to the roofs, where you can sit there, and where this is the landscape that comes out of this kind of new cupola, this that we made. The windows play an enormous role in that. Why? Because in this painting, say this person guards basically the developer downstairs. The commercial factor has 250 shareholders. You can say about that. The windows are a bit expensive, I have to admit, because of the all the treatments inside, but they become also like an address in your bedroom or in your office space, or you can play on top of it. But collectively, you have this kind of window towards the environment, and that's what it is. As an example of opening act. I'm proud also to show the pyramid in Tirana, which is nearly finished. To have that. Some of you might know that Albania had a time of communism, and that Hosha wanted to make this kind of structure at the end of his life, where he would be there and to stay there. Then there was a moment of chaos in the 90s, and then this building became actually the symbol of destruction also on one hand. So to get rid of the windows, to have graffiti over it, to go over it, and with sliding down, with sometimes indeed some casualties, to have that orchestrated. So what do you do then with such a kind of building was a question of the parliament. And with a series of, say, conversations with different persons and different architects, it was decided to go for a direction that is now, say, built. So yes, such a kind of double-sidedness of such a kind of building is you can destroy it, flatten it, and go away. That's one option. Option 2, you restore it in the glory of it. And the decision has been made to actually keep it as it is, to use it as a school in the future, but to make it as open as possible and to accessible as possible. So one could say it becomes a kind of garden feature. So that helps the existing clean up, get rid of the windows, and it becomes part of the park. Start to make stairs wherever possible to make it safe and that everybody can go up. Add this program of school and of adjacent kiosks and restaurants as if the building is squatted by this new kind of village, connected with the landscape that goes inside. Control the microclimate with this flip-flops that make it possible to keep the rain out. Still quite experimental to work on it. And you have a public pyramid where you live with the history and you go over the history is what it wants to do. So this is then the image that hang over it and how with artists we make these boxes that are now where the school is going to be inhabited and opened in September, that spills out and where you can have restaurants on the different moments, where you can climb the stairs together. You can cross from one to the other if you wish. And ultimately you come on the roof where the parliament will have the meetings. It's now finished with this new, say, elements on the top, and you can look down through the star to the past and to the decapitated head of the dictator at the moment, and then you walk down again through the park, and you are back into the city. Openness is can also be out of other material. Openness is good for access, but can also be a mean to combine it in as a survival act in density. We did once a study on, say, the beauty of the North and also the South Pole, but these endless spaces that you imagine. And we did, say, try to imagine how certain cities would look like if they would, I mean, this is Vancouver, how it would look like when you would do everything transparent, except, say, the intimate parts of our life. We do that in mirrors. And if you can continue with that, then you get actually a fantastic, say, infinity to explore that. So we did that with many things. We try to understand, say, the transparency more better. And the crystal houses at that moment with Chanel in, say, the Oxford Street of Amsterdam, how to use that basically also as a tool to show more their products, but also to deal with heritage. Let me be also quite frank on that. So we made stones in Italy, glue from the, say, the dentist industry, and made all these blocks again to glue them together so that it becomes as transparent as UNESCO can allow for, and to negotiate the moment even with the wood where it can be, how it transgresses towards the brick of the monument, and how you then have a presence that is somehow a kind of new jewel in the UNESCO landscape with the details that are there. And somehow you get a building that you want to touch. It is one of the not intouchables, but the touchables of Amsterdam. Is what it wants. I never have made such a kind of, say, touchable building group. And the inside, somehow the products become better, and I get a kind of a context like this is what it wants to be. So it is studying a little bit how that porosity could be staged and make in these two kind of ways. Chapter 7. Humanization is a kind of an important tool that we also discuss. And I think the vertical village was a way to a book that would like to address how individuality and informality could be combined with density and intensity. I showed it a little bit already in WeGo, but here we allowed for more freedom. It was done with researchers in Taiwan and in Korea, in Seoul. And when you look to the markets over there and you see how people have to choose between type A, type B, type C, then the choices are based only on price and square meters. So can we also imagine more a kind of variety of voices that do that? And if we did this for the Judd Foundation and for a building, and I will show you the results soon, is to start, it took a while because to control the finance in it, and people start to select their dreams and based on their finance and their history. And already this is quite beautiful. And of course, I know that Vitra made also a beautiful place with Herzog Numeron in Wine am Rhein. But this is urbanism. This is not a building. So that could become like this at the moment and start to look like this. In the meantime, in that development, we try to explore that concept a little bit. And I think the radio tower in New York, in 181st Street, so pretty Dominican area, we developed together with the neighborhood actually a stack of different programs that would be acceptable, but also create a kind of mark stone for 181 and Amsterdam Avenue. So this is normally what you see in this northern part of Haarlem. And what we basically use is the same typology, give it another kind of, say, functions, stack them on top of each other, and that give them another kind of, say, impression. So we used the different stones to address that. So I think what I see when I land in City Airport is cute, huh? There's 6 towers of colors, but I think you can do one step extra when you stack them on top of each other. Is what this is one to show. So there's hotel in 2 stars, one in 3 stars. There's housing involved, there's offices involved, there's a wedding chapel involved, and that leads to here to next to Washington Bridge to this kind of composition. You can go in, you see these slits. You come to the terraces. This is my favorite terrace next to the wedding zone. And this is a tearjerker. And if you're standing there with Amsterdam Avenue going all the way south, then you like to say yes, no? That is like what this picture basically showing. And of course, this interior is a public courtyard where you can meet it. So density became allowed in that meetings, in that process with the neighborhood committee. And I still remember that choice also, that they say, and in my poor Spanish, how to talk about it, is no white building and no glass and colors should be there, because all that white and brown and glass is for midtown and downtown, and this is what we would like to address. So still, I'm happy that we could make it. Now this goes further in our trajectory. Here you see how it will be constructed, the different houses in this art village, ultimately not in Taipei, but in Shenzhen. Yeah, the relationships become intenser, and how we made it now possible, and that comes, say, end of the year, into living. So what's next? 8 is greenification. And green is, of course, a wide word. I will do some chapters on this, but this is basically about a lot about oxygen. But I come to more parameters. The book Green Dip comes out in September, where we explored this dream of trying to change the city into something which is kind of nicer and which blends with, say, the biomes of that area. It has made an inventory of all the kind of species of every biome to see what it, how much space it needs and what it gives. So you have, can it take wind? How much maintenance does it cost? How much oxygen does it give? How much, say, evaporation does it need, and how much does it give? And then if you apply that on different, say, products, so I imagine that the future IKEA will look like this, and that we then have a kind of, say, products that all absorb green mass or biomass in a much more direct way. I extend it a little bit from the plants to the biomass composition, but that's I come back to that later. So if we then apply it again on a piece of Manhattan, and I check what I want to do, and I pick the products, then if I do that consistently, then you can see what this 1 square kilometer of Manhattan, in terms of oxygen, in terms of water capturing and buffering, in terms of water filtering, and so that is what. And then this is Fifth Avenue. This is, I think, How I want to go there is what it wants to say. And in how that can we also go inside maybe at a certain moment. That was invented by the students in that moment. And this is a wonderful new version of Manhattan that we could imagine. So the book will come out with quite a big new film also on it in September in Hangzhou, of all the places, but then I invite you to see that. But what is more important maybe is, does it do something? That is measuring. So here you see some effects if all the flat roofs in the world were doing, but not only the walls, not only, then I see this kind of pluses and minuses coming into it. An important one is the temperature drop of, in total, ultimately is 1 degree Celsius or Fahrenheit. That is then organized by this, say, map of flat roofs that could be done. That's substantial even. So you can say, yeah, we have to stiffen our roofs and these are plants and they die. No, you can maintain in it. And at the moment that your package is a little bit bigger. So I'm so proud at the moment that in Rotterdam, we achieved a local bylaw that says you have to stiffen your roofs as if you were on 4,000 meters in the Alps and get a load package of snow, that in this case, we prepared a little bit for this kind of functions. So the depot is a little bit helping on that. That is of course, it is a machine for storage, and I'll show you that. And it's a placemaker that somehow addresses, say, the city in the end, and the best panorama over Rotterdam, and maybe the ultimate object of the city, of the collection of Rotterdam. These kind of details had to be done to make it possible. And where you can go in. The art is not on the lowest floor because of the flooding that will come, but that you go up and then you explore this richness, a collection which is bigger than any museum because it's an archive building, and where you can wander through it and you can click on the windows and you can go in and have a kind of personal relationship with your choice. Ideally, because there's like a process to do it, then I think we have another kind of way of looking to art. It's not choreographed in the sense of the museum. It is you have to have a more active role, I would say, to explore that. The whole walk through the archives ends up on the roof in this restaurant, and here we test how can a forest survive on 40 meters plus. What do I need? I need a couple of things. I need a package of soil, an automated system. I need maintenance, and I need a screen that bends the wind over it. I need pockets on the roof to do it. So this, after a year of, we trained the trees 4 years long, brought it up. Then this is the effect it is now, and so you can see it. So I'm happy that every public building in Rotterdam is now used to explore that agenda with it. And then this is the message that comes out of it. And of course, the nicest, it's better than New York perspective, according to Rotterdam. Valley, same in a way. This is our business district. And it's a horrendous part of the city. And so when we were asked to make housing towers and an office tower and a museum in this quarter, which in itself is good, and this was what the urbanists thought that's the best we can do. So you have it everywhere. A plinth and a tower, a plinth and a tower. Go to Vancouver, there they found it. And it's, of course, it works on the smaller scale and it helps to mitigate with the sky. But I must say, it is as boring as you can imagine. And it does not help in the verticality. So what we do, okay, let's then scrape it away in such a way that we can have a walk almost from the bottom to the top. We make the mirror outside to fit in the environment. And then we plant it with Piet Oudolf into this vertical garden system. And then you have an object that shows somehow the old and the new, as if it wants to be double meaningful. And then you have this access, which is now made. And here already a lot of developers say, we don't do that because private roles. It is makeable, and that you can do it with the good lawyers to organize that properly. And this is then the dream that could come out of it. So the building needed to be scripted in order to get the balance between price, wind, privacy, and publicness. The stairs are made, and you can walk over it day and night. and go through the different, say, destinations in this valley between the apartments. You can look down. The ponds are made out of glass because they visualize and give light to the grotto below where the museum is and where the other functions are. And then you have every balcony, or every house has a balcony. I think the good part of it is that this is a building without vertical. If you have a balcony, you only fall one story so there's no problem at all. So there is but psychology that seems to work if you are going there. And of course, it's fantastic at Saturday afternoon when the barbecues are running and all the smoke is going around the towers to on the same moment. Why do they do always on the same moment? Is these terraces that are then made, and this rock appears then in the Dutch landscape. No, psychologically an important element for the Dutch, but it is I think here accessibility. Here the tower becomes in a way more collective. I put it in the green chapter. I could have put it in the open sector, in the porosity sector also of this speech. I think Seoul is for us in Seoul a very important reference in the building up on the knowledge on this kind of plant environment. So you see a viaduct that was over the central station that we transformed in the arboretum of Korea, where all the plants from A till Z are shown in pots. And everyone produces, say, these plants. At a certain moment, they're too big, they have to go, and gives knowledge on it. So these were the beginning photos. Now you see them bigger in the different, say, sections of the bridge. Also very nice, because it should be different than the High Line in New York, of course. That's no discussion about that. So here, an alphabet, no one has made it. So, okay, then we can do that, and you get gratuitously a beautiful composition. Not to theorize further on it is what it wants to say. Go to it. Some of you have seen it, and some plans are magnificent, others are worse. We do it together with the University of Seoul to monitor that and to understand a little bit the possibility of it. So what does it give? Like in Manhattan, the towers next door get more value, and new projects are coming up, like this one, which I think a very nice one. Same technique is going to be used. And then for the first, say, 50 meters, you hang them vertically to address them. So from this, it becomes gradually this is what this wants to be, and where these projects help to do it. So what's next? Chapter 9, humidification. I can make plans, but humidity is an important part. And I think Tainan Springs was a very important project in that way for us. Because here, city, and it used to be beautiful, but it's urbanism in Taiwan, with all the respect, doesn't get the say the beauty contest prize. So how to do that? And in this case, with the landscapes that we do, but also with the department stores, Chinese products to do that. So here you see how it was, how we ruined it, I could say. And we have to do it carefully because the sea is below. So any weight that you bring out, you have to compensate. So the debris was a fantastic, say, BBC award-winning film. I could imagine about that to have that balance done, and then you fill it with water, and you get this space. How would that work in an Asian context? I mean, you know that of course Basel is easy, and then you go immediately. You put on your swimming gear and you go and swim. But how does that work in Tainan of all places? So this is after a couple of days. We started first the kids. Then say the 20-year-old ones, then the 40-year-old ones, and finally grandfather was also sitting in this place. And the temperature drop of this, because of the 4-meter height differences and the ruins that we use as shelters still in it, that's 4 or 5 degrees at certain moments. So with the leaves that are there and day and night, they're not a kind of concrete that we found out. And I think this is how we can use water more and more in our cities to do that. I think the felt of square food works, but it's to have that. So what's next? Energy, how to embed that. So in Grand Paris, I will not show the project in Grand Paris in those days. We calculated basically what they need to compensate their footprint. and to make that better. Part of it is a solar cell production. I'm very happy at the moment. There's a law in Grand Paris which says, okay, always solar panels on your roofs, also in Ausmal. Look, how can we combine that then with? So that was a result of one of the results of that study. But now this is fine, almost done. At the Sun Rock where this rock comes where we cladded all the facades, even on the north. Yes, because efficiency is lower, and we calculated the type of panels we are going to use, how they are montaged in, sometimes transparent from the windows. That is now under construction. So it's again, it does more for others than for itself. Is what it does, but it makes a manifest on that coast that we can make this mountain of panels. Or we can turn it into the best pergolas that we could imagine. This one in Shanghai, currently under construction, where we can filter everything through this and get this kind of in-between spaces. Or in Hangzhou, in the factory park, where former, say, oil industry is now put into a kind of sun energy industry by cladding everything with that solar elements pixelated in the glass. In the office area, in the shopping area, in the museum, that it becomes then the tool also to generate, in this case with the LED, the kind of communicative system. So what is next? Point 11, decarbonization is still part of this whole agenda that we would like to do. As an office and with the Y Factory, we make this carbon scaper. Everything we good or bad we are. Yeah, sometimes you need inertia needs the concrete or other kind of inertia systems have to be in it. And we try to apply, like here in Paris, in this case, by testing. And I know it's a vulnerable subject here in London, but to make housing also complete out of this kind of CLC with this kind of interiors. So and we compare the laws in all the places in Europe. How far can you go? In Sydney Harbor, we work on this tower, and we could say that these are simply 6-story high volumes, so low rise, with a zone in between to neutralize, say, the flames and the danger is what we are working on with this kind of, say, interior. And last, now this, I have to see if this works. This takes too long, I'm afraid. I'm not going to show it. It is our latest building where everything is assemblable. So you don't make anything like your future mobile, but it's assemblable. So what is next? Epilogue. What can we do now? I went through all this. And these are all ingredients, what we try to now to bring together. But let's now fantasize for one moment, and now it's time, because built products are already of the past, what the then factor could be. So there is much discussion about it. I'm very happy to see this kind of reclaimed bricks that could be done in the zine. Or how meta materials we can now start to make better, say, compositions of our multi-layered facade. So the bioengineering that so many places are trying to imagine, and with the whole DNA discussion, how that could be imagined. And there are a couple of them. The algae, for better and first, we're going to do. But if I want to improve the algae, that's now 100 years from now, what I need to add to make not only the algae, but also species coming in, then gradually you would have a kind of other kind of city appearing. That is Rotterdam section. If I do that also, we talk about mycelium a lot, everybody, but other kind of routing systems that we add in these years, or to add a kind of a network where things grow and where recycle and embed natural life in it, then you can have over time, funny, say, experiences coming on, how things are growing. Finally, I think Peter Cook should be happy, no? That to have this kind of by nature without design. This kind and if I can do that also in the wood part, so the lignine that is in the woodification process, and start to interfere in that and accelerate the willows in this kind of shaping, then initially it's Stefano Weyri, that's fine. But then after a while, it starts to mitigate, it starts to become an again, then and kind of hippieism, where it comes again to life. So there are a couple of ways to study that. In the coming year, I dedicate that in Prague, in another university where we concentrate on this, is to think about, say, biological matter or material, how they could collaborate. You can do it as a network, that's the first start. And you can do it also as like an aim to blend it maybe in one composite, one could say, in the best. Actually, a network is also a composite. To imagine that's recyclable, that can give light, that can grow, that can bend, that can give and form space, that can stabilize into temporary wood, that can loosen up when desired by certain kind of impulses, that can become transparent even. So there's a lot of, say, properties that we would like to address in a kind of biological manner, is what it wants to say, and how can that then come together? So there are, at the moment, not the final product is there. I apologize, we have to come back in a year from here now to show what this kind of, say, cycles could be imagined both in a neighborhood or in a city or in a house to do that. And how, say, cities would transform by adding this kind of properties to it, so that gradually, I think, a self-growing mass or an interpretable mass, or all the things that I've tried to say before, try to come together. And then I make something which may be different. This was an installation in the Kunsthalle in Prague to show what that matter could be and how it can surround us. It's sponge, basically, what it might be frightening, but it's something like Baba Papa, but then the mama variant is what is coming now into this perspective. And then that would train this into something like that. And then that planet that I started in the beginning becomes something which is maybe survivable in many places. It needs a wide package. Yes, I have to talk about the deserts, and I will do that another time. Yes, I have to talk about our flooding zones and talk another time about that. But what it's about is that the natural and the unnatural shake hands. And that's what I think. I come back to that book. Finally, from a biological perspective, nothing is unnatural, is what this beautiful quote is saying. And this evolutionary is hopefully, again, about the direction that I tried to at the beginning of this lecture. I hope that I made a kind of direction of the sequences into a kind of dream. The question is, what do we want to want is here, what now is at stake, and how to celebrate that. And what's done next, maybe this age of biology is appearing. And with that, I thank you to explore with me this road to biotopia.
We are happy to welcome Winy Maas, founding partner, urban planner, and landscape architect. He has MVRDV, the interdisciplinary team, which was established in 1993, which he co-founded with Jacob van Ries and Nathalie de Vries. The award-winning Dutch practice has achieved international acclaim for a wide variety of buildings, cities, landscapes that are innovative, experimental, and merge theory with practice. Driven by the dedication to green, user-defined, sustainable cities and spaces, Maas's leadership drives many of the office's award-winning projects, which include the Dutch Pavilion Expo in 2000, Villa VitrA in Hilversum, Wozo in Amsterdam, the Rotterdam's Mark Hall, Crystal House in Amsterdam, Tierjan, Glass Farm, New York's Radio Hotel Tower, Amsterdam Valley, and the first publicly accessible art depot in the world, the Depot Boijmans in Rotterdam, which opened its doors at the end of 2021. I also had the opportunity to go see it this summer, which is wonderful. In Maas's broad portfolio, there are several master plans, including a vision for the future of Greater Paris, the left bank in Bordeaux, and the waterfront of Oslo. Maas balances practice with academic leadership. Besides his work in MVRDV, he's a professor of urbanism and architecture at the University of Delft, TU Delft. In 2008, he developed the Y Factory, a research institute that he leads at TU Delft, which explores possibilities for the development of cities of the future. Besides these many awards that MVRDV projects have received, in 2015, Maas was appointed to the Order of the Dutch Lion by the Dutch government. In 2011, the government of France awarded him with the Chevalier de Légion for his experimentation, innovation, and sustainability work. Maas explores how architecture transcends physical forms and becomes a tool for creating new connections and interactions between people, delving into the ways in which design choices can shape our experiences of spaces and influences our behaviors. Pleased to welcome Priya Kanchandani, who is a British writer and curator. Priya Kanchandani is the head of the curatorial team at the Design Museum in London. She studied modern languages at Cambridge University before embarking on a postgraduate degree in law. And at the beginning of her career in law, she had interests that tend and led her to undertake a 2-year MA in History of Design at the Royal College of Art, in which she gained a distinction and a dissertation prize. She began her arts career at the Victoria and Albert Museum and became the first female editor of the celebrated design and architecture magazine Icon. Priya has since curated international forums and, as a respected critic and commentator, has published on design in numerous books and publications such as The Guardian, Wallpaper, The Sunday Times, Evening Standard, Frieze, White Review, as well as appearing on many BBC shows, including Newsnight, Women's Hour, Front Row, and the National Press. At the Design Museum, she conceived and curated Upbeat Sari, an exhibition and book that was published in partnership with Thames Hudson, and previously curated the exhibitions Amy, Beyond the Stage, Yinka Laurie, Parables for Happiness, and Bethany Williams' Alternative System. She has also taught design history and professional practice as a visiting lecturer at the Royal College of Art and at Kingston University. Priya was on the board of the Chisenhale Gallery and Engage, and is now a trustee at the Hepworth Wakefield. She's been an advocate for plurality in the arts. She is a Collective Museum Detox founder member. I'd like to welcome the two members that I've just mentioned, Winy and Priya, on stage.
Yeah, thank you so much. It was a really expansive and visionary, I think, outlook on architecture and rooted in your own practice, of course. And there's so much to delve into there. We have obviously limited time, but hopefully we can go a bit deeper in some of the themes. And then we'll be opening up to questions from all of you. So please do keep them in your mind, and I'll come to you out there very shortly. Really, this idea of how we meld architecture and nature is really at the root of your thinking at the moment, which it seems from your lecture. And it's just amazing the solutions that you're proposing, places like Rotterdam and New York, algae, nature, and reforming the idea of the high-rise tower to be more open, etc. But I wondered what do we need to do next in order to make this idea real? And whose responsibility is it? So obviously there's a role of architects, but is it also town planners? Is it developers? And how can we create a network that starts to work towards this idea?
Well, like tonight, to start with that. And yes, your government should subsidize more groups that want to do something on the field of architecture to experiment with it. And yes, I do hope that your biennale will grow to something wonderful. You need also some more money to to make more like tests in London to do that. So there's a wide range of trying to stimulate each other on different kind of tests. I don't say that this is the truth. I say there's one perspective, and hopefully it's already multifaceted, or that it should give space to many in different ways. But what I hope to show is basically that we can be active, and we can hopefully also clearer sometimes in what we need to do and to say. And of course, I remember that like 15 years ago, I think architects wanted to be very vague. They were like mythical artists, etc. And they talked about things that I didn't understand at all. And then, but that is, and yes, it should be intelligent. And yes, we have to be. But there isn't now. I feel that there's a lot of people wanting to do things. If I go to the Biennale in Venice or to the Design Week in Eindhoven, I see much more. I say actually kind of new Siam somehow. That is where quite a lot of people want to work on this social or this green agenda or this water agenda. And it will be a nice series, by the way, next year in Berlin, especially about sweet water. So not only about the salty water problematics for the whole year long in hiatus. So that's also, so there is more already. There is how to do that basically. And then, yeah, there is a whole chapter that we still have to dedicate to our materials, to our bricks, to allow bricks also to take part in the wetification. And it's a contradiction. You want to be, but still it helps. And it's what kind of packages can we make? So we can make sweating houses if we want to do that. So there's a lot of people needed on the whole operation. I think it's a choice. I mean, it's right. Maybe most of the architects want to be maybe more introvert. Fine. Am I doing something wrong on someone? Because
No, not at all.
is it because I'm like also curious?
To see our city transform like that. Does everyone agree? At the moment, even installing air conditioning on our underground seems like a struggle. Many of you probably experienced the repercussions of that on the way here. One of the other ideas that's quite fundamental to your practice is the idea of high rise and intensity of architecture. I wondered if you could talk us through what the virtues are of that model, and why that is preferable to you than over kind of having kind of low rise architecture embedded within nature.
Well, in the short term, it still makes sense. And short term, I mean, it's the coming 100 years. There is to talk about density. I will come back to the after 100 years. Because in the short term, we don't have a mobility system which facilitate a proper suburbanization in general. In the bigger mega cities, it is or in the hyper sprawls of Northwest Europe or North Italy, it's a drama in a way, how much that consumes in terms of energy and how much waste it produces, say this undensity that is there. So secondly, in those denser parts also, if you wish also to do some agriculture, you see the current problems in the Netherlands and Belgium, then and you want to do it properly and ecologically, so with all the nitrogen out, then there is not enough space. So that means basically that all the products have to be done in Poland, and which is for all the mobility maybe not the best to have it. It's very contradictory. So you see that this kind of examples that a certain kind of intensity is useful to come that has a much better ecological footprint, and by far, I would say. At the moment, we work for the country of Luxembourg. It's the smallest but the richest country in Europe, and that has a footprint of about 15.6. Luxembourgs are needed to compensate itself. The richness helps a little bit now to tame it down. So there is kind of stack of combinations of like energy, water, housing, working, and is needed to make it to give it to survive it. And that's it. Now then to the next chapter, because if we become hyperbiological, if that say biological soup that moves us around. If there's energy doesn't cost anything, that more people plead for that we go to that. If there is no footprint that our mobility is giving or our product making is giving, then I have to pull back my current, say, advice. Because then, of course, you are going to live where you want, or where then you have a complete other kind of, say, balance that is doable. 100 years, probably not, but it might slightly. So that's why I keep for the density for the moment.
And does the connectivity that we've seen provided by technology change your view at all, and the way that we've been using technology, particularly since the pandemic? Do you feel that might liberate us from needing to live in denser architecture?
It has helped in terms of communication, of technical communication to have it. But I'm still here now, so it is not that we do everything like that, and I also don't like it to do it.
Something like in person.
Well, for many things, I find the communication still not that easy, and that's why we opened also bigger offices in China to have and need to work on communication much more. I mean, if you want to push things, then communication is super important. And that how can we convince each other? How can you convince developers on certain things? You have to talk longer with each other and to enthusiasmize, to show it also. And so it's not completely yet covered by non-presence.
That's fair. I wondered if we could talk a bit about your practice as a local entity versus a global entity. You're, of course, rooted in one place, which is Rotterdam, which clearly influenced your work and is also, in turn, sort of architecture capital of the Netherlands. But you're working globally. So I wondered if you could tell us a bit about how you transport that language and also how you adapt it within kind of local environments and climate context.
Well, that's actually a long story, but I'll do the short one because how to explore that. And it's one we love it, or I love it, to explore, say, your own or sessions or developments in wider cultures as well. Secondly, I think we want to touch also with our agenda to put it on more places. Thirdly, it helps. The market is bigger, so if we have niche markets, so that makes it then also possible to get more things established. But your real question is, of course, is there something specific in our work that makes it that helps that global agenda or global element? It's clear that if you compare it to Zaha or Patrick, then that's, say, a specific style that is taken, and I will never compete with them on that. I cannot with them. So it's not in my brains and heart. Yeah. But it's if you, and Zaha said that always a lot to me, to be honest, when she was alive. That but you are much more practical, Winnie. You are much more, and everybody can see the directness in it. So there is you don't have to, you are not hiding, and that is end quote. And it's so somehow it's that. I think in this approach, the argumentative is a tool. The comparative is this better than the other one. So during a process with a client, you do certain. The talk also about how can you as a client also make some things even better or more appealing? Where would you like to say exaggerate in it? Exaggeration can be also in intimacy or in modesty. Yeah? That's, the Swiss are perfect in that. But there is you see that there's also a desire that we share with many people to. The best buildings do have that also. The valley could have never made without Koen, without the client that wanted also, that didn't know how to show it. But that in a way, the logic that we could then developed with him or for him was then is then that's the and that you can actually find at many places that kind of method. That is, I think our Dominican building in Haarlem is could not be has a language of our part, but on the other hand, its directness and its interaction, I think, with people made it possible, and that is. And yes, I am confronted also with planning authorities in China that said the building should look more Chinese. My eyes become very big. What do you mean? Can you explain? And it should not.
An archetypal Chinese.
Yeah. No, but then you find a way.
Like,
Then you find a way, because then they say it should not look like CCTV, not like RAM. Okay, then that's fine.
there's clearly a consciousness of the need to adapt that language to the context, which is interesting. We have a few minutes left to take questions from the audience. I wondered if we could have raised hands.
So I just kind of want to know, like, the past few years, there are a lot of development in DFMA and design for manufacturing and assembly, prefabrication. How would that compare to the sort of biology advances in your grand plan? Like, how would the prefab side of architecture compare to the organically grown architecture?
Well, PR is not a bad word, huh? It can help to advocate certain agendas, and it doesn't mean that. I mean, everybody talks about greenwashing, and what does it mean? We have now also social washing. We have sports washing now in Saudi Arabia. So there's a lot of washing going on, and that is, which is, it's a tool, and it's a tool, and of course it has to be more thorough. That I completely agree with you, and it has to be a vehicle also that has to be tested and has to be evaluated. That is, and how good is it, and how long does it take to do it? And so for sure, our work is communicative, and that is also immediately on. You can say it's on the edge of PR. Then and I think we always try to communicate. I want to speak something or get something back. And sometimes it's also terrible what you get back. Fair enough, and then you have a bad night. But it's like there's a. But without it, it's also not nice. So what is the reality? That's another question. How far are we with certain things? I think this thinking about the future, speculation is a tool. Enlarging trends is also a tool to explore the possibilities of it. Now, talking with industry is a tremendous tool. I'm incredibly happy to be in the Netherlands in one of the better bioengineering societies, and to be surrounded by this. Without them, these thinkers and their things that they could make, this could not already be in the stage. This kind of suggestion. I don't say it's a dream, maybe it's a nightmare, but it's kind of that is. So I defend that. Yes, this kind of this hyperbole that we are basically trying to pay to help a little bit to get a question back. I mean, when I talked with Bazas on this rubber, and I went to them and in Ludwigshafen, and to say, what can you make this house, but can you also make for me then an openable door? It was too expensive. But to make a small piece, that was wonderful to see that and to do it. They helped on this communicative walls. And so I could do something with it. And it's a mini step, I know. And some will say you should not go it in these days. But I'm personally tempted and intrigued by it. Does that give an answer to your double question?
Thank you. I think there's a lot there, and we could certainly carry on all evening. But perhaps we can take another question.
Oh.
Sorry, I'll just get a quick one. John Blair here, an architect. I've been to a few of your buildings and really enjoyed that, actually. one of the things you touched on occasionally was densification and greenification and mixed uses, so that you've got lots of things going on in one place. But you didn't mention agriculture. You didn't really mention manufacturing. Have you looked at that in any of your projects? Where do they go? Where do they fit in this green city? And how do you get the stuff that they produce to the places where all these people live and work in this wonderful green city?
Well, one example on agriculture, because it's a very fair question. Our big city of, say, 15 years ago is now built, basically in China. These towers of pigs that are done. In the meantime, we became vegetarian, but that's then that was the film was meant for that part also to conceive. I think the project of Oosterwold is a small example of having kind of urban farming, smaller practices, smaller farms embedded in it. So these are, and it could be much more deep. I completely agree. And there are researchers in New York who do a lot in vertical farming in a very beautiful way already to get that further. And there is a good show coming up in Rotterdam on vertical farming. I also think that the Spanish pavilion in Biennale in Venice is worth going to explore already some of these compositions. Then about manufacturing in general, there's we worked for Hermès to have their factory of leather goods in Bordeaux in the center, which is like so the first, say, 3-story high factory in the neighborhood that I couldn't show now to have that done. That's possible because the noise system was not so big. There was not too many car movement also needed in this. Can be very compact, small stuff to it, but that makes it possible. So yes, we have to study it. I agree. Does it happen already a lot? Not enough. You see Tesla a little bit doing things, positioning in certain places in the city. They're bigger entities to have it, but that can be work for further study. Completely correct. I'm looking forward to get it embedded. And there's all the research, like in Game 3, where we show all the contour lines, the noise contour lines, the environmental contour lines of the different factories, what kind of effect that has in density. Maybe that's good to look up.
Thank you very much. I think we're running out of time, but it'd be great to take just one more short question.
Hi, thank you so much. My name is Natasha, and my question is that what are your thoughts on emerging artificial intelligence and its impact on architecture, urban planning, and humanity in general? Thank you.
Yeah, I started with that. It's fair that is then also the question of the end, and everybody is talking about it. There are beautiful already researches going on any university to test its potential and impotential. Currently, of course, the image making is still very poor. That is, you can see when it's an AI-driven experience, or when there is still a lot to escape for. It's still based on existing material, and let's start from that. So there's all this, even the language patterns that are done, and that's evaluating. Are we already a long time not contributing with our research to kind of AI? When I say in the very beginning with the Y Factory, we have all this scripting, all this grasshopper elements is a way already to, it was already aimed to have a kind of open source of is it equipped for decision making, ultimate decision making? That might be the question. I don't think so. That will be still very human and very. Is it equipped to also to make architecture which is completely innovative? No, that will also even go beyond the borders, because there will be still the artistic component in ourselves will still beat with it. Is what I can imagine. Are there a lot of dangers? So then we talk a lot about it in it. If it's in planning dangerous, then I don't know if I would do now Oosterwold with that. I'm curious. So the evaluation system that's needed in order to find a proper planning, you can bring it in. You can even make that. So it's the truth is not finished about that, and that we speculate on the dangers. We good that we all here together to warn about it, but it's like also still I see also things that are super helpful to. In my WeGo house could be really fun to do it on based on that. So to paste it in. AI is not yet equipped for that, right? Because if I want to make this kind of Utrecht house based on that, I need still to have some grasshopper elements in it. Can it be soon? I guess so. That some of you who are working in the universities are already making that kind of AI grasshopper program to work on it. It's unavoidable on one hand, and it's it is critical. And yeah, I worked 20 years already in this branch or in this belief that it helps. And without those kind of tools, I could have never built the valley, or I could never build the depot. So I can do already much more. I can do the glass industry, the mirror industry that with which we've worked with all the triple directional glass and how to make the molds for that. That's only done by our software. All the stones cutting in Spain is to make it as efficient as I would be a tailor, and with my trousers I would fit all the patterns of towers inside. That's how we did with the slices of the mountain, to get all the species in or the bad parts of the mountain to get it on position. So that could only be done by this kind of tool. So there's not a proper answer to your question.
You've given us loads to think about. Unfortunately, I think we're running out of time, but you've been an amazing audience and really, really engaged questions. And that leads me to say thank you to Vitra, but most importantly, Winy Maas, thank you so much for such an engaging.
Thank you.